Hello everybody and welcome. This is the Midnight McBride Show, show number 24. And I've called this show Laugh Out Loud with Lol Bell. And the reason I've called it that is because I'm a guest. And this evening I've got Lol Bell.
How do you do?
My mate Lol Bell from
my old mate.
Many years.
Many years, yeah.
So Lol, this show came about because I don't really go out very much and I don't go to the pub, but recently I went in the line of Vienna and synchronicity and alignment would have it that I bumped into you.
You did.
And we had a chat, and what I tried to do for a long time is I tried to get you on the radio.
Yeah.
And you weren't up for it at the time.
No, well, as anybody will tell you, I do a lot of talking, but I'm not up for public speaking.
No.
I
told Willow, Stephanie, my partner, and because she knows you, and I said, I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
And I said, Lol's not that comfortable or doesn't really want to do public speaking. She said, really? And she was absolutely staggered because...
We should have filmed it in the pub, mate.
Yeah.
We should have done it in the pub.
Because
you can... at Line of Vienna, that would have been, yeah.
If you're in a room and you're with a group of people and you're laughing and joking, you sort of take over and you command their attention.
Just noisy.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
Just noisy. Well,
yeah.
There you go.
So, Lol, I was going to do... You're going to be the first guest of 2 or 3 people that I'd like to get on the show, and one of them's a very good friend of mine and yours, Russ Campbell.
Yeah.
So, Russ, if you're watching this, I'd love you to come on the show.
Yeah.
And
you can cut all the bad bits out.
There's been no show left.
The villainous bits.
But I was going to call it Local Legends because these are people that, if you live in Bolton, like yourself, and another guy I'd love to get on is Trev Roberts as well.
Yeah, no Trev,
People that everybody knows and that over the years have had fascinating, interesting lives and done loads of things.
Went to school together.
Did you?
Primary school, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
you're above me.
Trev's son Brendan, who's a good friend of mine, is coming on the show.
Right.
We haven't agreed the date yet, but he's going to come on as well. So, yeah. What's funny, Lol, is the reason I called the show Laugh Out Loud with Lol Bell, LOL, when people text, is laugh out loud or lots of love as well, but usually laugh out loud. And you told a story about this.
I told you, when this LOL thing first came out, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm a technological idiot. I mean, I know nothing about technology. But suddenly, everybody's writing LOL. And I thought, I thought these people know me. What have I done here? LOL? The complete strangers going, hey, LOL. I'm thinking, friends on Facebook. What an idiot.
Well, I didn't know what it meant for a long time.
No, I didn't. Whatever. It's like my mate, he kept writing me M8. I'm like, M8? What the hell? What's that, mate?
Oh, mate.
Mate. Said to him, get a life.
I first met you, Lol, it's many years ago. There's a bit of an age gap between us, and yourself and Russ are both a bit older than me.
Yeah.
But I met you because when I was at school, I came to your salon.
Yeah.
It was a birthday treat, and my mum took me, and I went for a flat top.
Yeah. What year was that? How long ago was that?
I'm guessing 30 years ago.
Yeah.
In a long time ago.
Which shop was it, Bernie and Lawrence?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And it was a treat, and it was blow drying and everything else, and I came out and I hated it. But it wasn't because it was a bad haircut. It was just, it was very different for me at the time, you know. So.
Can't see you with a flat top, mate.
No.
I've
no hair.
I didn't cut it, obviously.
No. It's not optional anymore, is it? I've been bit bald for...
don't need her, mate.
25 years.
Yeah, gets it where.
What's it my granddad always used to say? He used to say... grass don't grow on a busy street.
Yeah.
Which, means if you're intelligent, there's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
So, Lol, there's lots of strings to your bow. And one of those is, if you look over here, folks, and you'll see, if we've got the wide-angle camera and you look over there, you'll see that there's 4 books. And you've got Shiny Scissors, Pavel's Gift, Eagles and Red Poppies, and Black Apple, which has just come out. So you're a multiple author, prolific in writing. Yeah. Especially with Pavel's Gift. You can use that. I've seen a tower crane, and they use it for a counterbalance. It's that big.
The thick books. Black Apples is actually a shorter book, but it's a slightly different subject.
Sometimes it's not about the size, obviously.
It's what's in it.
Yeah.
Just what's in it, isn't it?
So I thought what we'd do, Lol, we'll start at the beginning and we'll go on a bit of a journey.
Okay.
And then we'll arrive in the present moment and then we're going to have a good chat about your books that you write. Yeah. And something I'd like to say at this point is, on my journey, I decided I was going to write a book. And this is before I knew you'd actually written a book. And it was going back now 2.5 years ago, roughly, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
And I came to you.
Yeah,
I'd got the draft.
2017, I think.
Yeah,
I think it would
and
be.
I'd got the draft for the book, but I didn't really know where to go from there, and I needed a bit of guidance and advice. And I met you in 8020 up the road here.
Yeah, we did.
And yeah, you took the time out and you put me in touch with a couple of people, a publisher that we both use. And at the time, I really didn't have anywhere else to turn, and you made the time for me, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I have it. Publishing is a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And also, I have this thing: any author, anybody who's writing, I will support them because I know how hard it is. And if you can pass on a bit of knowledge that because publishers are so, as you know, and they're hard work, they're difficult people to deal with.
I found that certain publishers will only deal with certain printers, will only deal with certain wholesalers, will only deal with certain retailers. Yeah. And it's a minefield if you don't know what you're doing.
And when you go in, you're blind.
Yeah.
You're blind. You know, I went in completely blind. And, you know, you go through the internet and there's umpteen people on the internet saying, oh, yeah, we'll publish you that and, yeah, we'll send you boot round world and all the rest of it. And, you know, you're going to be another J.K. Rowlands. No, you're not.
No.
You know, and it's an absolute minefield. And if somebody, it's like giving somebody road directions. You come into a town and you're lost. I don't know where I'm going here. I don't, you know, and you stop, somebody says, you go up there, mate, and it's on your left. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, bit of advice, isn't it? Yeah. You just say, listen, I'll give you the knowledge. My thought that there with, I'll give you the knowledge that I know. And believe you me, I only know a fraction of it.
Yeah, but at the time, at least it set me off on the right direction, you know. I've learned that you think you've written a book and then you think, right, I've cracked it. Yeah. That's not even half of it.
That's easy job.
That's
easy. The rest
you know,
of it is
you've got to review it, it's got to be edited, you've got to have maybe a soft edit, you've got to look at the printing, the cover, the proofreading, the promoting it. It's a nightmare, isn't it? You and I know you don't do this for money. You do it for, if it's a passion.
I always said to people, if you're going to write and you're writing for money, forget it. Just don't even go there. You've got to write for yourself. Without doubt, you've got to write from your heart and for yourself and what interests you. If you're writing, I know there's certain authors do. They reckon John Grisham pulls one out on the same date every 2 years or something like that, and they write for money, but they run out of steam. Yeah, a lot of the you know, the major authors eventually they run out of steam. You know,
I find that in writing a book, for a start, unless you're one of the very, very lucky few, you're not actually going to make any money. No, but you do it because it's a passion, and you and I found it was a way of expressing ourselves. It was cathartic.
You know the simple thing, Pat? Yeah. Go to Bolton Library. Walk around Bolton Library, thousands of books by different authors. You've never heard of 95% of them. Yeah. You've never heard of a single. And the people who've wrote a few books put their heart and soul into it, like you and me, and it's just out there, and they've written it. It's just been on for themselves. Okay, great. If we can all make money, you know, fantastic, you know. But you don't, you know. It's like the pop stars. There's a lot of great. It's like the music industry. There's a lot of great musicians out there. You can go to pubs and hear fantastic bands and groups, but you only got, like, you know, on the TV, Simon Cowell's lots, and they pick some group off and promote them. Like Take That, or the equivalent to I don't know who's top of the pops these days or whatever. But it's a machine that promotes them. And you know, it's all recorded, and half of them can't sing live and they're miming. But there are phenomenal musicians out there. You can go to pubs, clubs, and you see people that are really good, that'll never, you know. Yeah. And in it, there's a bit of fate and a bit of luck. Yeah. And if fate drops on your toes and says, it's like J.K. Rowlands. Yeah. She went through nearly 20 publishers. They all turned her down. Yeah. Now, can you imagine if you were the publisher who turned down J.K. Rowlands, who sold second only to Bible in the amounts of books? Yeah.
You've got the likes
you'd be sacked, wouldn't you? You'd be
Chicken Soup for the Soul, the book. Yeah. They got turned down over 100 times, and it's one of the best selling. It's in the top 100 best selling books, and nobody would take it on. No. Nobody. No. But they knew they'd you just got to keep going, keep going.
Well, J.K. Rowlands, in the end, she had a friend of hers who became a manager, and he had a friend who was doing booktop publishing in his bedroom, and he said to her, "Can I give him your book?" And she said, whatever, it's no good, nobody wants to read it. So he gave it to his mate, his mate got back to him, he said, right, let me tell you something. The publishing I'm doing, actually, is children's poetry, children's poems. He said, I wasn't doing books. He said, but I've actually read this book. And he said, it's really good. And I think kids will really like it. So let's have a go. And no big promotion, but what they did, and I love this story, kids read it, and then they said to the mate, I've read this book, Harry Potter. And they passed it on, and then kids, I'll read that. And it were the children, word of mouth. And suddenly, they're publishing all these books, and the main publisher's like, what the hell's going on here? Well, she got such a momentum going. By the time the second Harry Potter book, it just sold millions, and it's continued to.
Yeah, and she went through. She was in a bed sit. She was on the dole. She had no money.
Her husband were Greek. Yeah. Divorced her. She came back to it. I think it was Glasgow or Edinburgh, and she lived above the cafe where she was working with her daughter, who was only a toddler. Yeah. And she had all this time on her hands. A bit like me, in a way. I've been through this sort of thing. And time on her hands. And she started writing.
Again,
You know, the Ford Anglia that's in the book was actually the same car that one of her old boyfriends used to have. And it's just little things. And the street names that she's picked up in either in Scotland, where she Edinburgh, Glasgow, whatever. And it's all but I think J.K. Rowling is a fabulous writer.
Yeah,
I really, really do. I just think her imagination, and I think she's a really nice person too.
Actually, from what I've read, she's done some great,
amazing charity work.
She's got a lot of money, and she's done some good things with it. You know, when you have that kind of money, you have a bit of responsibility to do some decent things with it.
Yeah, you do.
So you're a Bolton lad.
Aye, lad.
Aye, and I'd just like to say I'm glad you're still talking to me, because I remember. Obviously, many years ago, that I went on a date with your niece.
Yes.
Vashti.
Vashti, you did. You
and we had a nice time, we had a chat, you know, we didn't hit it off in that way, but and you're still speaking to me, so I'm happy.
You do know I had you following them.
I was tailed.
Russ Campbell. Follow them.
I wondered why I kept bumping into Russ.
I don't think he brought the gun. No. No, I know it, my friends,
So, Lol, I didn't know. You were a DJ. Let's start at the beginning. You were a DJ when you left school.
Yeah, I was a DJ down. It became many names, but the original, the club was originally called, for anybody who's older than me, it was the Beachcomber on Bank Street.
Yes.
And then it became the Cromwellian.
Yeah.
And then it became the Playmate. And then it became various other things. I can't remember the rest of the names. But I was when it was the Cromwellian.
Right.
And I did 18 months DJing away. And I actually passed it on to a well-known guy, you'll know him, Colin McBride.
Oh, no, Colin,
Colin took over after me. I said to him, I said, I'm packing in. Do you want to go?
Colin did, I used to go to the Wanderers. We used to have tickets for the Premier Suite, season tickets, me and Dave Saul. And Colin used to do the announcing in the Platinum Suite. Yeah.
Well, you know the funniest story I ever heard about Colin? It just tickled me. You were introduced. To JJ Kocher.
Right.
And they said to him, hello, Colin, this is JJ. And Colin reached over and he said, hello, I'm Col. JJ looked at him like, just great, but we've been mates since we were, and I know his brother Graham, obviously.
We were quite lucky when we were in the Platinum Suite at the end of each game. Some of the players would come in, they present the man of the match in there, and we used to get to meet them all. So it was good.
Well, I went a few times with Russell. Boxing Day matches. We used to get a table together, a gang of us. Really great afternoons in there. Really.
Then an ice cream man for Manfredi's.
I left school and.
See, my old fella, my dad used to sell ice cream as well.
You're joking?
No.
Honestly?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this was the Manfredi's. There was two Manfredi's, the ones with the pink vans who were halfway up Derby Street, based on Cannon Street, and the other ones up at Morris Green, which had the green vans.
Right. I don't know which is which. I
was a Manfredi on Cannon Street Tower, and how I got the job, I left school under a bit of a cloud. And
why is that, lol?
Smithles.
Why, though?
Well, I actually didn't want to leave. They actually said, you've got to leave. I'd sort of done all my exams, and there were all these young women in there at the time, and I thought, hey, this is okay. You know, I'd gone down a year, and I was, you know, and I thought, this can carry on here, you know. And then Master called me and he went, what do you think you're playing at? You won't stay another year. You've already stayed. You shouldn't have been here last year. I said, well, I don't want to start work. So anyway, so I had to sort of leave. And my parents said there were surveyors. God, I can't remember the name now. Main Bolton surveyors in Bolton. Crankshaw, Graham Ball, I think it was at the time.
Yeah.
And my father had sort of said, this is what you should do. You should be okay, Dad. And I went in and I just went for the interview, and it just weren't me. You know what I mean? I'm like you in a way. I've always been a bit of a free spirit,
yes.
you know. So I went and I thought, the old man, it was like something off Dickens. He came in and I sat down in front of him and he said, hello, and that was his voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, little me. Hello, Mr. Bell, he said. Now then, I believe you come here for a position. And I'm thinking, oh, God. And he said, no, we've just had notification through that to become a surveyor, you only have O-level maths, and you will have to take A-level maths to be a surveyor, so where the qualifications are going. Are you prepared to do that? Well, I saw me out. And I said to him, oh, no. I said, oh, no, cock, I won't be. I said, oh, no, cock, I beg your pardon, he said. I said, no, there's not a chance on this planet that I'll ever get A-level maths. I said, no, it's not going to happen. He said, so I'm not prepared to even do that, Mr. Bell. I said, no, I said, we're wasting each other's time here. He said, well, it seems very. He said, well, it seems that we won't be progressing anywhere, Mr. Bell. I said, well, fair enough, pal. Fair enough, pal. I said, I'll give it a shot. And he was like, anyway, out I walked.
So then it was eggs, poultry, market trader. Now I know where you got the spiel from.
Well, the story was, you see, I came out of there, and at the time I had a scooter, and I jumped on my Lambretta, and I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, my mother's going to kill me, because she's been telling everybody, oh, my son is working for Cyril Morris Outright. So I'm like, oh, got a Graham Ball, whatever it was, and Crankshaw's Outright, Crankshaw. And I said, I thought to myself, she'll kill me. So I took the scenic route home, and I'm driving up Double on my scooter, and I just saw Manfredi's ice cream. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'll give him a go. So I went to knocked on the door, and this guy came out, Louis Manfredi, great character, Italian, cap over one side.
Yeah.
Hello, my boy. Hey, what do you want? I said, have you got any jobs going, pal? Yeah, he says, we've a round going in Wigan. The man will start... he's finishing, the man who's doing his next week, he said, with a round coming up. You want another job? You can drive away? Yeah, no problem. Okay. He says, you come day after tomorrow, I have him take you on the round. Are you okay with that? Yeah. So that was it. So I got home, and I walked into the house. Well, not a problem. And my mother's upstairs, bless her, ironing.
Yeah.
And she says, hello, love. I said, hiya, Mum, you all right? She said, how did job go? Oh, I said, no, I'm actually, I said, I'm not doing that surveyor job. Well, I didn't go down.
Yeah.
And she come to the top of the stairs. She said, you what? What do you mean you're not doing that job? I said, no, I'm not doing it, Mum. I said, it's not for me, and they want A-level man. So I've got myself another job. Don't worry. And she said, why? What's this other job you be? What are you being? I said, an ice cream man for Manfredi's. And she burst into tears. What? I went, oh, I'll be all right. Oh, no, the shame. So that was that. So.
But then you moved into, you worked on the market and you were a trader selling eggs.
Well, from there I did 12 months on ice cream, and you know it were great time, because in them days nobody had freezers. No. And we hadn't got the supermarkets. You know, they weren't selling ice. You know, you could only get ice cream, man, off the Italians on the van. Yeah. And I was going round Wigan. Now, Wigan are renowned big eaters. And they'd come out with bowls, give us 20 scoops. And I made a fortune. In them days, a working wage, I remember my mate's dad were working at Edbro's, time-served engineer, and he ran £42 a week. And I were earning £100 a week on ice cream.
And And in 1920, that were a lot of money, wasn't it?
1890. And I used to even go and park out, Ritzy, where Pally were.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't drink like you could in them days. And they were all doing this Northern Soul and dancing about. And you laugh at people. And I used to go on a Sunday night and park outside, Saturday night and Sunday night, park outside at 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock when they come out. And they'd all be like, oh, give us a nice long lol, a nice lolly, give us some ice cream. And I used to sell out. Yeah. And I used to go back up Cannon Street and old Louis with her with his cap and he'd be out with torch. Where the bloody hell have you been? And I used to say, never mind where I've been, Louis.
Give me some more.
Look at your money. Look at your money. You see, you're me top man. So
when Sandy Holt was on here about 3-4 weeks back, Sandy used to do Northern Soul dancing. He was a champion.
He was.
He was even on telly as well. He was interviewed.
Yeah, he was. He did all that sort of. So I sort of did. I did the ice cream job, and my mother never stopped peckering my head off. It was like, you need a proper job. And I had a drawer full of money. I mean, how far did income tax go back? Pesetas, it always is. And anyway, so from there, she mithered me to get a proper job. So I went to, I got a job at ICI at Blakely in Manchester, which kept her happy. Oh, Lawrence is working for ICI and all the rest of it. Well, I went there, and it were a lesson learned in life. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated
Were you in
it.
a factory situation?
It was in the labs.
Yeah.
I was in lab. I was lab technician and all the rest of it, and I had to go to technical college now. The problem I'd had by then, I'd had 12 months of freedom.
Yeah.
12 months of being my own man. And suddenly, it was just like being back at school, first year again. Bottom of the rung, of the ladder, didn't do anything. And
Fix breaks, toilet breaks, all this kind of thing.
And people telling me what to do and having to count. There's like a system, the chemists, they were the top men, and you were right at the bottom. And by then, I'd got used to my freedom, and I was desperately unhappy. To such a point, I was actually giving my parents a lot of grief at home. Like young lad, 19-year-old, because I was just going out at night and going crazy. Yeah. And I always remember coming in one night, and my father sat there, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and my father sat there, and he said, "Lad, come in here in front of me, I want to talk to you." Oh God,
no,
here we go, another rollicking. So I went in and said, "Sit down," he said. Right, he said, "What's up with you?" I went, "What's up with me?" "Nothing. What do you mean, what's up with me?" Your father and son attrition, which we actually, as life went on, he became my best mate. Well, he became my best mate that night. But he said, "What's up with you?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "Are you happy?" I went, "Yeah, sort of." He said, "Are you happy at work?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Do you like your job?" I said, "To hell." I said, "I hate it." I said, "But who likes the job?" Well, my dad was a self-employed market man. He said, "I like my job." He said, "I look forward to it every day." "Do you not?" I said, "Dad, I wake up every morning feeling sick, having to go into Manchester. I absolutely hate the place." And he sat me down that night, and his father and son thing, he told me about his life. And he told me about his life. We had a really, first time ever, he sat me and he told me about his life, and he said to me, "You need to be self-employed like me." And it was my father who said to me, "Look, there's an opening in Bolton for selling eggs to shops, and loads of shops and butchers at the time. Why don't you have a go? Why don't you get yourself a van? I have a contact for eggs. Have a go at wholesaling." And that's how I started off. Left ICI, started off.
Probably that bit of advice you got there changed the course of your life.
Oh,
And I know what it's like to do a job that you hate, where you feel like you're dying inside. Every day you get up and you just, this anxiety, you're depressed, anxious.
I used to stand in that lab, and there was a clock at the end, and I used to not look at it, and I think, I'll not look at it for an hour. And then when I'd look up, 10 minutes had gone past.
Yeah.
And I said, "Dad, I'm waiting at the clock going round all day long." And my father said to me, "Do you know I chase the clock all day?" He said, "I've that much to do. I'm forever chasing the clock. I'm never waiting at the clock. I'm chasing the clock." And he just gave me this advice and it got me set off from there. You know,
Good advice, love. Good advice.
And I did the eggs for a few years, and then I started selling chickens as well, frozen poultry, fresh poultry to butchers, and that became big. That became bigger and bigger, and in the end I got rid of the eggs and concentrated, and I bought some massive bird's eye refrigerated containers.
Yeah.
And I was handling thousands and thousands of pounds.
You don't know Mark Hayton, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Simon Hayton's like, I was best man at his wedding. His
Yeah,
dad
I know
lives
Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he lives in America now, Mark.
Yeah,
Because
Mark,
he was on the
yeah,
markets,
yeah.
wasn't he?
Oh, I dealt with Mark for years. Oh, I remember Mark. Yeah. I used to do his hair one time at our first hairdresser shop. Mark and Simon. I met Simon quite a few times. Yeah. So Mark, Sam, and I've got this poultry business which is growing and growing. And then I got in with the Chinese. Now, the Chinese are fantastic people, and at the time you've got to understand this was sort of 70s.
Yeah.
And, you know, things were different and people talked to people different. You know, it was a racist thing, I suppose, in a way. But the people who supplied the Chinese, especially the market men who supplied them with chicken, were really quite rude with them, really quite rough with them, you know, and didn't give them the service that they deserved. And I came in with a different attitude. First of all, I got a good supplier for, they need big chickens, because they could come cut the meat off. They don't want small chicken. They want, you know, for the... Yeah. So I had a good supplier for big chicken. But also, I treated them with respect.
Yep.
And they used to call me Bell. The last name's Bell, but Bell. And if they were ever stuck, I would go out, throw some cases of chickens in the car and drive to wherever. And by this time, I was supplying chickens to takeaways from Manchester to Preston.
Yeah,
I had a hell of a business. That's why I packed in the end. I burned out, but I dealt with these and give them a lot of respect. And the product was good, but they liked how I dealt with them. And every week, go to my cousin, go and supply my cousin.
Yeah.
And it would just...
Word of mouth, like J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. And it would just word of mouth. And I always remember one day, I went in and the guy paid me. And they used to always wrap the money, the Chinese, £9-10 notes with one over it. Yeah. So that was £10. And there weren't a lot of £20 notes around at that time. So they would come out, and if they owed you 300 quid, they would go, you know, and they'd count out the tens and give it you. Yeah. Well, I always remember this guy who's talking to his wife, and he counts all this money out, and I just let him count the money, because they were very honest with me. Yeah. You know, and I came outside, and I was just putting it in. I thought, I'm sure there's too much. And when I looked, he'd paid me double. Instead of paying me £200, he paid me £400. Yeah. So I went back and I knocked on his door, and Mr. Chin, I think he was. I said, Mr. Chin. He went, what's up, Bell? I said, you paid me too much. And he looked at me. I said, here's the money you've given me. It's £200. You've given me £400. So I said, yeah. Well, he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it there. And he said to me, you good man. And the best day of the year was going round Chinese New Year. Yeah. Because they were all drunk. They're all the time. They're all pie-eyed on Chinese beer. And everywhere I went, well, Bell, you have a beer. You have a beer. Driving round. I like that. But they're great people. And I just went on from there.
Lol, when you said you burnt out, do you mean that you overdid it? Because you got so busy?
I got to a point, I was married then to my first wife, Bernie.
So this is before your hairdressers, this isn't it?
This is before I was married to Bernie, who was a hairdresser. Yeah. And we set up a hairdresser's shop on Charlie Hill Road.
Which is famous, by the way, Bernie Lawrence.
No, this was before that. Oh. It was her own shop, and it was next to the A1 Chippy.
Oh, right, okay.
A little hairdresser.
I didn't know that, yeah.
And she was very talented. The most talented hairdresser I've ever known was Bernie. Anybody who knows her will know what I'm saying. And we set her up on this one. And she was doing well, was doing really well, and with staff in there. And I was like, I got myself to a point, I could have worked virtually 24 hours a day. I'd come in at night, 9 o'clock at night after delivering, and my dad would be stood there with a list, give another 20 deliveries to.
Yeah.
And then I've set off Preston and Manchester again. Just Birmingham. And we were going out Saturday night, and I was conking out. And we'd go out with our friends, and everybody, we'd be sat at a restaurant, and at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and everybody were used to this. I'd be at the end of the table, asleep.
Yeah.
And we'd go to parties, and I'd be sat at the couch. And I have to have a change every so often. My sister historically said, Will Orange changes his business about every 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'd had enough of it. Yeah. And I didn't know where I wanted to take it. And I actually wanted a change. I'd done it for 8 to 9 years.
It probably served its purpose. It gave you the cash to start something new.
So I thought I'll pack in. And at the time, we're having a few staff problems within the hairdressers, Bernie's hairdressers. And I said to her, listen, I'll come in. We had market stalls, and I used to manage the market stalls for my father on weekends. So I was used to doing the managing thing. So I said, I'll come in and manage the shop. And because she was that busy hairdressing, I'll manage the shop, and with about half a dozen girls there working for us. And I said, "Well done."
You had a moustache at the time.
I had a moustache.
I'd seen the pictures.
Yeah. We all had moustaches back in the 70s. We looked ridiculous. We all looked like Romanians.
I tell you what you can do, Lol.
Yeah.
Before we carry on with you telling us, tell us the little story you told me about the moustache. We're at the Lion of Vienna, and it's about acting. And a famous actor.
Oh, Sir Laurence Olivier.
Yes.
Right. It's a story.
I thought because this is just relevant.
Yeah. Michael Caine. I always said it was in Michael Caine's autobiography. Michael Caine, obviously well-known actor, but the actor at the time, the absolute top actor in England was Sir Laurence Olivier.
Yeah.
And they were doing, what's the name of the film? There's 2 of them in it. There's only him and another.
Not Sleuth, is it?
Sleuth.
Sleuth.
Yeah. So he said, I'm acting with Sir Laurence Olivier, the man. And he said, there's 2 of us, there's only 2. There's no hiding place. He said,
there's only 2 of them in the film,
in the film. And he said, I've got to go up against him. And he said, I was really nervous. I'm outgunned here. This man's going to blow me away. I've seen him perform on stage and screen. It's just unbelievable. So he said, so we go to the filming, and the first day of filming and all the rest of it. And he said, and we come out and we start filming and all the rest of it. He said, well, I wiped the floor with Sir Laurence Olivier. Mm. He said, even I knew I'd done it. He said, they kept having to cut, do it again. He were out to sync, he were out to balance, he couldn't handle it. So he said, we finished the day's filming and off we went. So second day, they go on again. Filming doesn't work, just doesn't work at all. And he thinks, what's up with this fella at all? It's Laurence Olivier. No. So on the third day, he said, well, I'm getting a bit cocky by then, aren't I? Yeah. This film's I'm going to be the top man. He said, they came out for acting the third day, and he's wearing a moustache. They've put a moustache on him. And he said, we started acting on the third day, and he turned the tables and blew me completely out of the water. He was formidable.
Yeah.
So he said, I couldn't understand. So when we finished filming that night, he said, we went to, I went to his dressing room, knocked on the door, and he said, I went in and said, hi, yes, how are you doing, my boy, and all the rest of it. He said, can I just ask you something? He said, for 2 days, by your own admittance, things haven't been going well. He said, but today, you've just been phenomenal. And he said, yes, he said, what did it? I needed the moustache, you see. And he said, why, what's that about? He said, I'm an actor. I have to be somebody, and I can't be myself.
And for the first 2 days, he was being himself.
He had to have like a shield, or it's like the costume or whatever they have to wear. But he had to wear, and the moustache just did it for him.
Put it into character.
He put him into character.
Else.
He said, you see, but I can't play myself. I have to be somebody. That's what I am, and I'm an actor.
Yeah. I love that story.
Yeah, and he had to step into somebody else's shoes. Yeah. Once, that's how we were trained,
A good example of that is Robert De Niro. If you actually see him interviewed, he's quite a quiet, meek man and doesn't say very much. No. He can play phenomenal acting and play phenomenal characters, but he's actually, as himself, I wouldn't like to, I don't know how you say it, but he's not got a lot of personality when he's himself. He's a very quiet man.
I once heard it, he was the same, Alec McGuinness.
Yeah.
And he'd very little to say. And he'd been on teen films and they just step into character and become this. I always remember I was in America years ago and I met a couple of lads and they did boating, around, like charter boats. Yeah. And they'd just been, I was down in Miami. And I was talking to them, and we were just talking. They said, "Yeah, we've just had a strange one." I said, "Well," they said, "we've had Jim Carrey for a week." He said, "We've had him on a charter boat, just me and my mate and Jim Carrey." I said, "I bet that's been a riot, auntie." They said, "It's been a nightmare." And they said, I said, "Why?" They said, and it's the same thing again. Forget what he's like on screen. He's a manic depressive. He said, "We had to go and sit with him every night." And have a drink with him to keep him up. He said, otherwise we'd have gone round. He didn't even want to sit up back at boat. Just wanted to be away on his own.
I think, though, Jim Carrey's actually had a nervous breakdown, didn't he? He went through and he's looks a lot happier now, but he's stepped... I don't know, he had a period of time where he stepped away from Hollywood, grew a big beard and reflected on his life and sort of...
Because he were manic, weren't he?
Yeah.
He were manic. It was like... But it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah. So, Lol, we're back at the hairdressers. So, Bernie and Lawrence...
We're back at there.
So you'd decided that you needed a break, a change in career.
I'm going to management. So, okay, I go into management. Now, it's an arrogance to think you can step into another business and just be a manager. So, and I had plans for this shop. I thought, this is good money. The ladies' hairdressing, we can make something of this. So what I did, I went on a course. It was a 6-month course, supposedly, but I said to her, I'll just go for a month or 6 weeks and I just find the ins and outs. All I wanted was the education. Yeah. And it was like going on a Vidal Sassoon course or a Tony and Guy course. Yeah. The firm was called Pierre Alexander at the time, but they were very big in the 70s in Manchester. Massive setup. So I went and I could just do it. I just went to learn and I could just...
You found your groove?
I found it, yeah. It's a strange thing. When I was at school, my best subject was woodwork. And I got an A level in woodwork. And my tutor, Jim, he said to me, you've got it. And there's something in my hands, the woodwork, and I think it crosses over to the hairdresser. But I've always been, if somebody shows me how to do something, I can somehow do it. I have a mate of mine who was a plasterer. And when we were plastering one of my shops, I was helping him, and he went, "Do you want to do it, this?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Go on." He said, "I'll show you." And he showed me this water. And at first, you're just scraping. And then you realise, no, it's the water. And and I did. And suddenly, I got it. And when you've got it, it floats. Because you have a surface of water, and that's what gives the smoothness of plaster. It's not the edge of the metal, it's the pressure of the water. And he said, "I don't believe it, you've got it." And I was like that.
Yay!
Hey. And he went, "How have you picked that up that quick?" And anyway, I got to Pierre Alexander. And after a couple of weeks, and I befriended, there was a guy there called Koichi, who was Japanese, and his family owned a chain of hairdressers in Japan. Yeah. And he came over to be a tutor, but also to learn Japanese. And I was older at the time. I was sort of mid-20s, I think I was. I think I was about 25, 26. And the rest of the kids there were only 16, and they were just mucking about, and parents had paid for half of them and all the rest of it. Yeah. But me and this Japanese guy, Koichi, was quite a shy guy, actually. Now, when all the modellers used to come and the customers used to come in, it was like a reduced rate. You could have a haircut for £1 at a really, because they were used as model. Yeah. He used to ask the ladies what they wanted. Now, his English weren't that good, and I could see him struggling, and he was also slightly embarrassed about it. So what I did, I stepped in with him. So when the lady sat down, I said to him, I would say, "Mr. Koichi would like to know what you would like to do." So he would tell me. Now, I somehow picked up some sort of pidgin Japanese that he understood. Yeah. And when I would sort of tell him what they and he would like, and he said to me, "You're really helping me. I really appreciate what you had." Because the rest of the kids were just mucking about it back, and we were good to be like 10 clients come in, and we would go to each one, and I would tell him exactly what she wanted in this sort of pigeon, and he was really good. And in thanks for that, he took me to one side, and he showed me the cutting, and he showed me what the angles were about, and he also introduced me to Japanese scissors.
Yeah.
And left-handed Japanese scissors, because I'm left-handed and the blades are set a different way. And Japanese scissors, the good ones, really good. I mean, you pay £500 a pair for them. They're made by the people who made the samurai swords.
I was going to say, yeah.
They're a fantastic. You know, when you get them, you can shave. You can shave it. That's always the sign of a good scissors. You can shave your arm with them. And he said to me, Lawrence, you understand this. I understand the geometry and the corners and the weight. It's like a joiner dealing with wood. You know, a certain wood, you know, pine will do one job, mahogany will do another. And it's all about everybody's hair texture. And it was ladies' hairdressing at the time. Everybody's hairdressers does different things, fine hair, thick hair. And it's up to you to take that material and make it work for that lady.
Do you know what we've had so far? We've had Chinese, Italian and Japanese impressions. I'm expecting, I'd like French and Spanish before the show's over, please. I don't know if you do it as we're travelling around the world.
Yeah, it's well known if I do a Pakistani accent, it ends up being Welsh. I always say if a Pakistani says Aberystwyth, it comes out as Welsh. Aberystwyth. Get out of it. Go on. Anyway, so I went... And it just took over my life, Patrick. It just, the hairdressing thing. And my first wife, Bernie, it was her life too. She just absolutely, she was a phenomenal hairdresser.
In the 80s, like I say, in Bolton, Bernie and Lawrence was the benchmark for...
Well, we got in. What I used to do on the Saturdays, I would be at the...
You couldn't get in. If you phoned to get booked in, you couldn't... I remember my mum and my sister always wanted to go, and you have to book weeks in advance.
Well, the original... When I was at the training, I started on the Saturdays working in our first little shop. And I was so keen that suddenly I was booked up every Saturday.
Yeah.
It came that quick to me. Customers I could just do it. So from there... We were on a lease, and I decided we need to buy our own place, and we bought Bernie and Lawrence down at the bottom of Charlie Hall Road.
That's where I remember
that's where it
was much bigger there.
Oh,
as well,
yeah. Oh, it was big.
2 floors, wasn't it? And
2 floors with 15 girls working for us, and we specialised in black hair. We were first salon outside London to specialise black hair. And when Black Hair and Beauty magazine came out, big colour edition, the first edition, we were centre spread. They came up from London and did not a London salon, did a first, and we did all hairdressing shows.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
All the hairdressing shows and the lads, the dancers and all sorts. We did umpteen shows, and they were always sellouts. They were great. We did shows in clubs and all sorts of all hairdressing. It was 10 years of complete. Well, it was, again, I burned out in the end. And it
a great period, but it seems whatever you do, you get to the point where you excel at it to that much where you can't keep up with demand.
You can't. It was just... It was just... Well, in a way, it cost me my marriage because it was just... We were just head on all the time. And I think Bernie burned out as well.
You remarried and had another couple of kids, is that right?
I went on to... I did 10 years at Bernie and Lawrence, and then I packed in, sold it to Occasion Cakes, but I retained the property on the side, which became my barber's shop, which I lived in for quite a while. It was an house, and me and Russ Campbell knocked it down and turned it into a shop. That's another story. But from there, when I packed in, I was on burnout, and my father had died, and it really shook me. It to this day it still shakes me. And I had the burnout with the shop. It had just got too much.
Is that where you went to the USA?
And I went to America, and I did 6 months round America.
I'd love to do that.
And I had to clear my head, Patrick. And I'll teach you.
Did you travel motorbike or any car?
Greyhound bus most of the places because I wanted to deal with people.
Did you go on your own, Lawrence?
Yeah. Went all around. I flew out to San Francisco. And I was in San Francisco for a couple of weeks. And then out of the blue, I found a flight, would you believe it? No, it didn't. I was actually going to go to Los Angeles. And at the time, it was very violent.
Yeah.
And the people I met in...
the Crips and the Bloods and all that.
It's all this caper.
Yeah.
And the people in San Francisco who I met, they said to me, "You going to Los Angeles?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, yeah? Just backpack, no car?" I said, "Lawrence, let us tell you about Los Angeles. It's 40 square mile of urban blight. And the famous places are dotted about, but in between, it's ghetto land." And they said, "You will get robbed, attacked, and possibly murdered." They said, without doubt, there's no, we won't go to Los Angeles. Certainly not. You need a car and need to know your areas. You cannot wander around Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd only been out there a couple of weeks and I thought, this is not really a good idea, Lawrence. These are people that's telling you. And if you do get robbed, it's game over. You know, you're coming home. So I was sat at a cafe one day reading a newspaper and I just saw flights to Hawaii. And $100, and at the time a dollar was 50p, 50 quid. Yeah. And I just...
Hawaii, yeah.
And I thought, Hawaii, which is an American state, I thought, $100? So I got on the phone. There was the phone kiosk, and I said, "Hiya." I said, I'm just ringing you up. I said, "I've just seen your advert in the newspaper, blah, blah, blah. Flights, $100 to Hawaii." I said, and San Francisco's a massive place. I said, "I'm not being funny." I said, "Are you local?" I said, "Because if you are, I'll come and see you. If not, it doesn't matter, because I don't know San Francisco, and there are bad areas in San Francisco as well." So she said, "Right, where are you?" So I said, "Right, I'm on the corner of blah, blah, blah." She burst out laughing. She said, "There's a building across from you, high building." She said, "They'll have aluminium doors, such and such a building." I went, "Yeah." She said, "That's us. Come in there, 18th floor." Oh, she meant some time travel. And she said, "Come in and see." So I said, "Right." So I finished my coffee and walked across. And I walked in, up I went, walked in. I said, "Hello there." She said, "Oh, hiya." There was her and there was a coloured lady with her, two young women. And she came over this one. She said, "Hi." I said, "I've just rung you." "Oh, yeah." She said, "You're the guy with the accent." So I looked at her. I said, "What do you mean, the guy with the accent?" She said, "Your funny accent." I went, No, you've got the funny accent." And she laughed. She went, "I don't get you." I said, "Where am I from?" She said, "England." I said, "So I'm English, yeah?" I said, "And where are you from?" She said, "America." I said, "But what language do you speak?" She said, "English." "Oh." I said, "You're the ones with the accent." So I booked the flight and off I went to Hawaii. And I hired a motorbike on Hawaii, one of the most carefree times in my life. I had a couple of weeks over there. Yeah. And I hired this motorbike, and all I had on every day, a pair of flip-flops, a pair of shorts, a pair of shades, and a towel stuck on back. And I went all around the island, day after day. Saw Pearl Harbor as well, where all around, day after day, round the island.
Just and on the beach, swimming, eating.
Surfing.
Yeah.
Don't even ask me about surfing. That was another disaster. I nearly killed myself. But I can remember there was some big old tree that only grows in Hawaii, and it was on the beach. And I sat there on my own one afternoon, Patrick, and they're watching the waves coming in. And it all fell into place. I'd have never got the shot right with the management because I was too busy working it. Yeah. And everything. And all my life, it was a strangely small.
It's like an epiphany, like a moment of clarity.
Absolutely. I just saw it. It was like somebody had drawn back curtains. And I knew straight away I'd done the right thing. Yeah. The shop had got too big for me. Yeah. I'd run out of steam. I would burn out. And I just... And it was an epiphany. I just sat, and I'll never forget that. Sat under that beach just with the waves coming in. And it was just like somebody opening a gate. And it gave me a certain amount of peace over my father as well, and that was just where it went. And from there I went round America, crossed America, went down to San Diego and went up to Salt Lake City and went across and ended up with friends of mine, went through Texas and Dallas. Well, I went to Dallas, so for knowledge for one of the books. I didn't know at the time, but it's where Kennedy got shot. Never knowing that I was going to write a book which would include the Kennedy assassination. But I'd been there. I'd been up the library tower. Even then, up the library tower, I knew Oswald had never shot
No,
Kennedy.
no.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
It's common knowledge now, isn't it?
Not a chance. Yeah. And I walked round and it's in the, I've written it, written it. But to me, I think there were 2 or 3 involved, but there were where you would shoot him from was the famous grassy knoll.
Yeah.
Without doubt. But that's that. But it gives me that, I always had that story in my head, I've been there. So I went round America, ended up in Miami. Had a few crazy months down there with my mates, and then came back, knocked down the shop, opened it up, started the barber shop. Yeah. Me and my second wife got together. We had my children, and I got married.
Where did the taxi driving fit in?
When I come back from America.
Yeah.
I decided, right, we're knocking this place down, and I got a few quid at bank to pay for things, but you need that money, and I thought, right, in between this, I need just a little cash earner, just to pay for my beer money.
Yeah.
And, cash. So I thought, well, what should I do? I'll be a taxi driver. That's easy. I'm flexible. I can drop off, start when I want, finish when I want, whatever. So I passed my taxi test, and I went working for Telecars.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, I used to do the manager of Telecars. And a great lad, Steve, and he said to me, I used to cut his hair at barber shop, and he said to me, do you know you're still a legend after all these years in our shop? I said, am I really? He said, yeah, Lawrence, there's always this story. He said, we've had drivers come, they've stayed 2 or 3 weeks, and they've just done a month. But he said, you are famous for doing 1 day. And I did 1 day, and I had 1 day of how much? That morning. And if you notice, and I never do this, I treat taxi drivers I treat everybody with a lot of respect, but people talk down to taxi drivers. It's one of them. They talk down to them. Where have you been? I mean, the guy's taking you to where you want. Yeah. And then I had a big row with one guy and threw him out at cab, physically threw him out at cab. He called me the B word. Where have you been? Well, if you're a taxi driver, as soon as you dropped off, they tell you your next drop. They don't tell you a bloke's been waiting for you an hour and a half an hour. So anyway, at the end at night, I was driving 2 guys. I always remember up Bury Road, and I was taking them down to Pack Horse, and we're having a laugh, and it were only about 7 o'clock at night, and it was a warm night, it was sunny, and they were laughing and joking, and they said, hey, Lawrence, you're funny. They said, why don't you dump this car? I said, I've just started this. I said, I'm not right happy with you. They said, oh, dump the car. Come on the beer with us. So I said, I can't, I'm driving. Well, we'll be at Pack Horse for next hour. Blah, blah, blah. And I dropped them off at Pack Horse. And they said, hey, we'll be here for an hour. And, Telecars were just down Bank Street.
Yeah.
And my head went, I thought, I could kill a beer. I don't want to do this anymore. I hate it. And if this is what it's like during night, what's night going to be like with drunks? I'm going to end up fighting. God, when I was younger, I was daft. So I thought, I just drove back, took the car back, walking. She went, what do you want? I went, no fallouts. I said, here's all your money. Here's your keys and everything. There's your car back. I won't be coming back. She said, you only started 11 o'clock this morning. It's only 7 o'clock. I said, that's been long enough. So I went back to Pack Horse and walked up with these 2 blokes. We all got pie. I had a great night. So, yeah. Okay, so from there, came back. We knocked the shop down. We rebuilt it, during which time my wife got pregnant. We had our first child, our Grace. Went on to have a second child, Matthew. And that settled, and we got a house. We bought a house as well, and that sort of settled me down. And, I'd made the decision. Well, life makes a decision for you. I've got children now. I've got responsibility. I've got a wife. We've got a nice house. We live the life. So, and that's what I did. And I stuck with the business up to retiring, really.
Yeah. Which was how many years ago, though?
I retired 3 years ago.
Okay.
3 years ago.
At that point, when you retired, you'd only had written the first book, is that right? Or had you done the second as well?
I'll tell you the story of how the books came about.
And we'll just say, before you get into it, There's 4 books, and as we're going through, maybe tell us a bit about each book. I certainly know quite a bit about the first and second book, but not the third and fourth.
Right.
And the joke we had in the pre-show chat was the fact that when you did Shiny Scissors, I think a lot of people were on pins because they thought, I hope he's not written about me in there, because you were the confidant, weren't you? People would come to your barbers and tell you all the secrets.
Well, how it came about, I unfortunately, I went through a difficult divorce with my second wife, and it was about probably 2012, and we'd split up. My kids still live with me.
Yep.
It was a difficult time, and I wasn't going out. I felt I couldn't go out to leave my kids, especially my son, who was quite young at the time. I wasn't prepared to, they were my main priorities. So suddenly, I had time on my hands. Now, back in my head, I'd always felt like writing something, but life's that busy, you just don't fit it in. What you've got to say. But suddenly, 2012, I had time somehow. And it's a strange thing, Patrick. I don't remember starting writing. I don't remember starting writing. If you could say with a day, what made you start? I haven't a clue. I do not remember starting writing that much. I just started writing. And I worked from the premise of the book, Shiny Scissors, is, as everybody knows, everybody tells you stories at the hairdressers. Everybody tells you stories, and I get loads of them. And in my shop, it was one-on-one, so I get to, everybody's problems are one thing and another. So the book is every story, there's a basis to it. I mean, they always laughed. I said the names have been changed to protect the innocent. But what I did, I took the basic story and enveloped, made it bigger and turned it into a fictional story. And in every story, there is a twist in the tale.
So there's a basis of truth in most of those stories.
Yeah. And there's some of those stories, there's stories from people who have unfortunately passed away now, but older people, people who fought in wars. Yeah. And the stories they told me were remarkable. And the repercussions after the war, like pregnancies and people coming back and the wives and things that's happened during the war.
A lot of blokes came back from the war and couldn't talk because they all had PTSD, but it wasn't a thing then. Nobody knew. And they were all in shock and they went quiet.
First World War, they were shooting them for cowardice, weren't they? Yeah. And it was shell shock. It was terrible.
And there was a lot of suicides that never really got brought to the forefront,
Yeah. And a lot of stories that people have told me, which there's an anchor of the truth, but every one of them I've embellished it and made it funny and put a twist on every tale. It says here, I can't remember what I've written now, it's that long ago. Hairdressers are people who know something about everybody and everything about somebody. Yeah. And that's true, you know what I mean? And because it was one-on-one and in my shop, I had guys coming in having marital problems and financial problems and secrets that they couldn't tell the wife. They were losing their houses and the wives didn't know. And, in many cases, I got one that, you just need to pay some of your mortgage just because you've got behind. If you pay them something, they can't. A lot of people don't know this. You get behind with your mortgage. If you give them £10 a week, you go to court, they can't throw you out your house. So if you pay nothing, just little bits of advice. People have come in and said, Lawrence, I said, the first thing you need to do is tell you why. Well,
I've got spots on me bits. Where do I go? And all of that.
Yeah, all sorts of things. Even from I'm going bald. Yeah. No lad's really upset and said to him that. I had customers come in out to the blue. My mates told me, come here, I'm going bald. What do I do? And they got it sideways and over.
It looks
and
bad,
I said to him, listen, leave it with me. Are you being a customer? Leave it with me. I'll sort it out. Should I have a number one all over? Well, they got one. I said, no, you're drawing attention to it then. I said, leave it with me over several haircuts. I'll take it shorter and shorter and shorter, and nobody will ever notice. And people, great, and nobody ever did. Which if you're going bald and you go in and you have a number one all over, you're making... Yeah. What the hell are you?
One thing with me though, I've never troubled me. I was going bald at 19, shaved my head, and that was the end of it.
Me neither. I have to tell you the story. I was going bald at about 19 and burning a wisdom, and it was a particular time, those Kevin Keegan years. She said, I know what I'll do. She said, I'll give you a curly perm. So there's actually somewhere, God only knows where, there might be a picture of me with a curly perm. I look like bloody apple. our pub, Groucho Marx, once he had Marx Brothers with curly hair. And that lasted, I ended up, my father were horrified. I think he thought I'd turned. So that lasted about a week. I said, shave it off, and from that was the best thing I ever did. Don't ever worry about your hair. No. Don't ever worry about your hair.
You know that 2 shows ago I did a show naked, which has been aired now, and that was all about the fact that I don't look great with my clothes off, but it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
You know?
So I'll tell you something now. A lady once said to me, I was cutting her hair, and I was laughing. I said, "Oh, they're bald, like me." She said, "Yeah, my husband's like you." She said, "Who's like you?" And she looked at me. Greatest advice going, I've said to loads of blokes, but this woman said to me, "Shall I tell you something, Lawrence?" She said, "About being bald." She said, "Do you know there's 2 things women detest?" She said, "One's the comb over," and she said, "the other is the toupee." You remember when people used to toupees? She said, "We absolutely detest and laugh." She said, "A bloke comes in with a toupee." She said, "We're all nudging each other." She said, "Shall I tell you something about women?" She said, "We're not bothered about her. It's the man underneath the hair that matters."
Yeah, good advice.
And I thought, what a great statement. She said, "It's the person under the hair, the man who's under that hair that matters to us, not your hair."
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So
book 2, Lol, Pavel's Gift. Now, this is interesting because it's, if I've got this right, it's about Tsars and Russian history and an unlikely topic I would have thought that you'd write about, but...
It was my first book, and I wrote it, and every book's taken me about 2 years to write. And I wrote Shiny Scissors, and I wrote it, and right, okay, I've done it. And I looked at it, I thought, it's okay. Now, I made the fatal mistake of giving it to a friend to read. I always say, never give it to your friend or a relative, and I gave it to a friend or a relative. Yeah. Of course, they said, "Oh, it's wonderful."
Yeah,
wonderful.
No, you need...
So at that point, now I have a friend of mine, a guy called Les Smith, who's a playwright, wrote about 20, 30 plays, been performed at Octagon. He wrote that Early One Morning, it's a World War I play. And he also, Les, he taught writing, creative writing at Manchester University. Right. So he's the man. He's a man. And he came out, and Les has always been a really good friend of mine. And I said to him, I said, "Les, can I have a word with you?" I said, "What?" I said, "I've written a book." I said, "Will you have a look at it for me?" And he went, yeah, of course I will. I said, I told him what it is and all the rest of it. So at the end of it, rolling, in A4 in a folder. So he said, he said, "Give me about a week." So a week later, he came through the door and just finishing a customer, and he's got his folder. And I said to him, "Hiya, we all want to be J.K. Rowlands, and we all love praise, don't we?" So he came in. I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I'll tell you what I think." He said, "Your stories are fantastic." I said, "Really?" He went, "Your stories are absolutely great." So I'm like, just basking in this glory. And he said, "But let me tell you something.
Your writing's not...
Your writing is terrible." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "How you're writing it is just... You're writing, Lawrence, so you're talking." And he said, "It's not working right. You're missing your flow. It's just not. In fiction, it's... And you've just... It's not right." So he said, "You need to rewrite it." I said, "Which bit?" He said, "All of it."
It's not what you want to hear, is it?
"What?" He
2 years of my life in that book.
2 years of my life in that. I said, "Rewrite all of it." He said, "You need to seriously sit down and rewrite it." He said, "Your tale's a good book. Just look at it again, how you're thinking it. It's not. Think about other books you've written. It's not working right." And he said to me, "Can I tell you something?" He said, "I once rewrote a play 15 times to get it right."
Yeah.
He said, it's the rewriting that makes it work." And he said, "That's the important thing." He said, "Your stories are right." He said, "But your writing's not good enough." And you've got to bow to... This is a man who teaches creative writing. You've got to... it's an arrogance to think, "No, I'm right, you're wrong."
Yeah.
So I sat down and I started to read it again. And I got it. I got it what he meant. There were too many breaks and it just weren't... And I actually sat down and I rewrote the full book 4 times. 4 more times till I felt I got it right.
You know, from pills to peace. Do you know
Yeah.
what revision I was on when I finally finished that book?
Go on.
Revision 103.
Honestly.
Revision 103.
Yeah.
And each one, there weren't mild changes.
Yeah.
It was from back
Yeah.
to front,
Yeah.
from start to finish,
Yeah.
going through every single part of that
Yeah.
book. And it just went on
Yeah.
and on and on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you want quality, you've got to...
You want, I mean, I probably... That book, it was the beginnings of me learning my craft.
Yeah.
It was the beginnings of me learning my craft, you know.
And it is your craft now, because
Yeah.
you're a prolific
Yeah.
author.
And also at the time in the publishing, the publishers, they used bad proofwriters, and there are odd mistakes in shiny scissors. I mean, now I use a friend of mine, he lives in Spain, a guy called Colin McMorris, who proofreads for me. And he not only is he proofreader, he's very critical. It's Colin, and he's honest. And he would if there's certain things that he feels I've missed, he'll pick up on it. But
I had what they call a soft edit, which basically means they didn't look at the content because I wanted the content to stay exactly as it was. But what they did is look for past the correct tense and just your paragraph structure and your punctuation. That was all. But even that was expensive.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know. Well, I think that was badly proofwritten on my first one, and the printers made odd mistakes too. But it's like my mate said, you roll over it, you go with the story.
Yeah.
You know, if there's
you've got. There has to be a point. When I wrote my book, there's got to be a point where you just let go. Because otherwise, your book will never happen.
No.
So,
Well, after the 4th time, I thought at that particular, I can't do this. I can't write. I can't get any better. I can't.
It's like when I prepped this studio for doing this video podcast. 2 months I spent setting the studio up. The lighting wasn't quite right, and the angles weren't quite right. And
It's
then
a personal thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I went on, and there came a point where I thought, if I don't start filming now, you know, and so 2 months of prep before I filmed the first show because I wasn't happy with it. Eventually, now each show that passes, you just improve a bit, don't you? Gradually, then.
Well, I wrote Shiny Scissors, and you know it got well received, and people said to me, "Are we having a Shiny Scissors too?" And I said, "No, I can't. I wrote the stories I wanted to write.
Yeah.
I always think if you do a 2, it's a pale version of, and you immediately get, oh, it's not as good as the first.
Yeah.
So I went on to write Pavel's Gift.
Tell us the gist of that, because like I say, when I was told about it and read the back, I thought, how does Lawrence write this? Where did it come from? You know, it's such a
most
different period.
I mean, I do a lot of research, but most of my books, I've been to it, I've been there. Pavel's Gift, it's based in Russia. I've never been to Russia in my life.
Yeah.
But I started writing that book. It starts off with a hidden piece of jewellery. It's a builder who finds a piece of jewellery wrapped up in the rafters of a building.
Is this now or is this years ago?
No, this is now.
Right,
My
got
book,
you.
a lot of my books, they forward to go back.
Yes.
They forward to go back. And it's he finds a missing piece of jewellery, a phenomenal piece of jewellery. And written in within the envelope and the box it's written in is, you can have this jewellery. There's something like that. It's yours. The guy with his wife, they take it to a jeweller's in historic jewellers, or the guy knows historic jewellers, and it turns out to be something who's made by a Russian jeweller who worked for Fabergé, who ended up in England after the revolution. And then the book, from the start of it, you know, this that's the first chapter about finding this. And the guy who finding his wife's blind, and that's another part of the story. But it then goes back to the 1800s to a family in Russia. And it's actually, they're in the wood trade and the wood business and builders. And it's the tale of that family. And the son who becomes a master joiner is called Pavel.
Ah.
Now, Pavel is an absolute genius with wood.
Yeah.
And he goes and works for the finest cabinet maker in Russia and makes all these phenomenal. And he marries this woman. And there's a long story about Pavel and Pavel's gift, which is all separate. But they have a son. They have 2 sons. One son goes into the timber trade. He's very successful. He takes over the company, the furnishing company where he made it. But there's one son. His talents, Vasily, is another way. And his talent is jewellery.
Right.
And he ends up, and his mother realises he's never going to be in the wood, but realises he's got this artistic side to him. And she takes him off to work for a jeweller's, one of the main jewellers not Fabergé, but he gets lifted from Fabergé, and his talent. And Pavel's gift is actually, it's not the ring. Pavel's gift is the talent. The talent he had in wood, he passed on to his son, the artistic talent in jewellery.
Got you.
And this guy becomes this phenomenal jeweller working for this Jewish guy, and from there, he gets moved on to Fabergé.
Did Pavel's gift take longer to write than, say, Shiny Scissors? Because it's basically twice as long.
Yeah, all my books take me about 2 years.
Even irrelevant of the
size of the content. Pavel's gift, I just loved writing that book. I can't tell you. I just absolutely.
I've read bits of it. I haven't read the whole book. And from what I've read, it's like you got lost in it. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I did. From there he goes and works for Fabergé, and he gets involved with the Romanovs, the royal family, and gets embroiled with them, and it tied in with them, and there's a romance, and then the Russian Revolution starts, and he ends up back in England, and then it goes back to Australia, where this fantastic opal's found, and an Aborigine finds this, and there's a story there about how the opal ends up in London, and this Vasily, he ends up in London working for these jewellers, and the opal arrives, and he takes it and makes it into this phenomenal ring. Now the ring from there gets moved on through different families. It gets robbed, it gets stolen, it causes murders, and all sorts of the disruption. And that's why, in the end, it's so bad. The guy who steals it hides it because he ends up doing a murder, and he puts it in the loft and says, "This has been a disaster." So that's the story. But I just. And in the end, the Russians want it back, and they want it back, and it goes into this couple who bought it. They end up down in London at the auctions, and there's a big power fight on that. The Arabs want the ring because it's his famous ring, and the Russian he's an oligarch, which is based on. He's called, in my book, he's called Verkel, but it's based on the guy who owns the Fabergé Museum now in St. Petersburg. Right. So there's a lot of research gone in, but it's all.
Yeah, I know from Pills to Peace, there's the second chapter of that book where I had to reference everything because I quote a lot of facts and figures. The amount of work in that it took me.
I do a lot of research.
Twice as long as anything else I'd written.
I do loads and loads of research. People say to me, "Where do you get your research from?" I research all my books, all of it, you know.
The next couple, Lowell, give us a brief description of those. So you've got Eagles and Red Poppies.
Yeah, that is about. He's a Polish guy. It's before, really before the starting of the Second World War, and he's a trained Polish marksman. He's a young lad going to go into the Olympics. And through a series of events, he gets married, going to be a marksman. It's all about his family.
Yeah.
There's a lot of upset in the family, and the Nazis move in to Poland. And, you know, a lot of the Polish, they went on the Nazi side, and they sent a lot of their own to Auschwitz and places like that. Anyway, through a series of events, the Polish turned Nazis, they have him and his family arrested and shipped off to Auschwitz. Right. And there's a bit more goes on than that, but he manages to escape.
And then your latest book, Black Apple.
That's based around 9/11.
Right. So is that which one refers to the JFK murders? It must be Black Apple.
No, Eagles and Red Poppies.
Oh, right, okay.
Eagles and Red Poppies goes on. And he escapes and he comes back. He escapes out to the train and gets back to his native city. And he catches up with the guys who... But there's a lot of stories in between. Yeah. But he catches up with the guys who dumped his family in it and sorts them out. And then he ends up going via Gibraltar, travels through Europe, partway through Europe, and gets from Poland to Gibraltar and manages to get himself on a boat, gets himself over to England, and the British government realise what he can do, and they use him as a sniper. and they send him out as a sniper, and his life goes on from there. And then his life goes, and he's used by governments all over the world to take there. Now, there's an incident happens where he finds part of his family, but he gets used again by, well, it's the CIA, not the CIA, the FBI and the mafia, and he gets embroiled in the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
And this member of family is tied up in prison, and the mafia are going to do him. And the only way they'll let him out, they did a deal, the government, is the shady side of it was you get involved in the Kennedy assassination, and it's how it ends from there. And
then give us a quick synopsis of Black Apple.
Black Apple is...
So this is your new book.
This is my new one that's out. Now, it's based during the time of 9/11. It's not all about 9/11. 9/11's the incident in it, but it's a guy's love story, really. Well, they're all love stories, my books, but he's actually living in Barcelona. He's a banker, lives in Barcelona, this guy, and he gets tied up with a major embezzling thing. They were trying to use his bank for drugs money, and he gets manipulated, and he meets this woman, and it's an absolute nightmare. And he has to flee from Barcelona, and he flees to New York, where he has a friend of his who works in a bank, and he starts his career once again in the banking world in New York, but he gets pulled into insider trading. Right. He gets pulled into this insider trading thing, and all the upset there now in the middle of this, and there's different people involved in the bank who are different parts of, and there's one guy there, he's an Arab who's living a double life that nobody knows about, and he's laundering, and it's all quite complex, but it's the time of 9/11, and it's how 9/11 affects everything from there. Because 9/11 was the worst thing I've ever known for humanity, outside a declared war. 9/11. I mean, I went to New York, and I went up the Trades Towers, and I dined at a restaurant at the top called Window on the World. And you actually looked down on Statue of Liberty, like this statue. And I went in that building and dined up there. A just unbelievable building, and you never thinking that anything like that could ever happen. Yeah. So, and it affected me a bit personally. You know, and also I had a friend of mine who was actually in the Trade Towers the day before, and he missed it by one day. So,
Lol, if somebody wants to buy your books, where do they go? Is it Amazon?
Amazon and Kindle, and they're on Kindle as well.
Amazon and Kindle.
And they're on Kindle.
And they're in paperback and the electronic format.
And the electronic, yeah. And
okay.
They're just available now.
Lol Bell, I think we've come to the end of the show.
Right.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great.
My mate Lol.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've loved having you on.
Yeah.
And I'd expect at least...
I thought there'd be beer, by the way. This is how he got me bride, mate. He said, we'll have a case of beer. No.
I'm expecting at least another 10 or 15 books out of you.
I'm started writing another. And I have in the back of my mind, I actually would like to attempt, but I don't know whether I can or not. I want to do a comedy.
Right. I think you can.
Well, there's in
just
Shiny,
write about your life, Lol.
Well, in Shiny Scissors, there are certain chapters. There are comedy chapters. I mean, they basically involved my father at daft things we got up to on farm. But people said to me, I really enjoyed the funny chapters about, you know, the farm and your father and all the rest of it. There's a whole chapter about my father and the daft things we got up to on market and farming and all the rest of it. So, and people, a lot of people have said to me, I really enjoyed that bit of story. You know, you should do something like that. You should write a comedy. So, that's another future plan I've got.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's on the agenda. Each time you go through life, you take on a new project, you excel at it, and then you move on. And with the writing, it seems that every book you've written, although there's a common theme, maybe a love story, they're all very different, set in different periods, and so a comedy maybe is on the cards. Yeah.
Well, if it's comedy, you'll be in on it, mate.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah. We'll call him Peter.
Lol, thank you very much.
Great. I've really enjoyed it, pal. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Still no beer.
No. This has been the Midnight McBride Show number 24. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe on this YouTube channel. There's a new show out now every Thursday and every Sunday. And then all the shows also go out as an audio podcast on iTunes, Podbean and Spotify. Also now going out on Amazon and Deezer as well. And I think some other platforms also. You can get me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can go to the website, midnightmcbride.com, and you can also catch me every Monday night on Salford City Radio 94.4 FM, 11pm till 12pm, or midnight till midnight. And the quote this week I thought was relevant, and to express yourself is to express. Ex as in former, as in previous, to remove, and press as in pressure, as in to force something, which implies resistance. To express yourself is to remove pressure, to express. To get what's inside out. And we do this with writing, as Lol knows, and I know it's a great way to express yourself and it's cathartic. This quote, when the song inside is louder than the music outside, you are manifesting, you are in the creation process. This has been Midnight McBride. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you the same time next week. Shalom.
Shalom, indeed. Shalom, indeed.
Shalom, indeed. Shalom, indeed.
Yeah.
Russ, I dare you to come on my video podcast. I dare you.
Yeah. Right, here's today's challenge. Russell Campbell, you are next. If you can do better than me, which I think you can, you're the man. Okay, that's our challenge. I'll drop you in it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. And this is the Midnight McBride Show, show number 24. And I've called this show... What have I called it, Lol? I'll have to edit that.